because God is about to talk with you about some things that he wants you to do. And now the sentence here was upon him, and it was hurting him, and he was agonizing before God, because when he looked at the cup that he was about to drink, he realized that this is painful to the flesh. But this now is a verdict that it demands a verdict, and that he's got to face this whether he wants to face it or not. So he gets out there in the garden, and while he was out there in the garden, and I was agonizing before God, it becomes so intense that even his sweat gland began to open up. And when they look at it, he sees that the blood starts streaming out of his sweat gland. The Bible said his sweat becomes like great drops of blood, because now he realizes that there is a reason for him to go reclining with God. He has to realize what he has to do, because it is an evidence now that it demands a verdict, and who is going to pay for this? So Jesus went a little further. And when he went out there praying, and he prayed to his Father, and he said, Father, if this be possible, let this cup pass from me. And I'm going to add an addendum to this, God. I'm looking for this, though I'm seeking for this to happen. He said, nevertheless. It's simply then that I'm letting you know, although I want this so bad, although I want my flesh to be satisfied, although I want to receive these things, it's not a bargain chip I'm putting on the table, God, but I want you to know I'm soliciting you now. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. There is somebody today here that is apt to make a decision about your life, but it's not as your will, but as God will. So he said, nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. It is here that we have to see then that this word is attached to whatever it is about to be said. I look at this then, I want to say now, Jesus realized clearly that he has to come to a place of understanding that it's not about me, it's not about what I want, it's not about what I want to do, but I've got to attach it now to where I'm coming to understand that it is all about God. It's all about God. It's all about a surrender to God, because now I'm finding out, even though I want it so bad, even though I don't want to do this, I've got to realize it's all about God. And here now Jesus is saying now, nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. When I look at John here, when he wrote to the church, he was writing to a church that God has already selected. But there was problems with the church that Jesus wants to call their attention to. And when we look at John here, he said, unto the angel of the church in Sardis. Jesus allowed John then to bear the message, but he didn't bear it directly to the members. He bears it directly to the angel of the church, because he's going through a process in which he will get the message to them. And what was the message? What was the message? I know your works. And knowing here is an understanding then. You can't hide anything from God. It doesn't matter how you look. You can't hide yourself from God. We can put on anything that we want to put on. But when it comes unto God, he knows your work. Look at somebody and say, God knows. He knows my work. He knows what I'm going to do. He knows my steps. He knows what I'm thinking. He knows what I'm about to say. He knows your work. And if I know your work, I'm expecting you to understand that if I know your work, I know what you're about to do. And what you're about to do, I'm to let you know that this is not good. I know your works. I know know your works. I know your works. I know your works. How do you operate? I know your works. How do you act? I know your works. What are things that you hide from your neighbors? I know your works. But then he looked at it. He said, I know your works and your labors. I know your work and your labor. You're a hard worker. Everything I can depend on you to do. You're disciplined. You're dependable. I know how you work. You are available. I know it. I know all the things that I want you to do. You have done all these things. And so now I know your work. Then he said, I know your patience also. I know your works. I know your labor. And I know your patience. Your patience is that you are not going to go off at a drop of an eye. You will take a moment because you will wait them out. Look at somebody and say, God will wait you out. He will wait you out. I know your works and I know your patience. But when I get done with this, he's still saying, and you have patience. You have borne all the things that should be borne. You have waited on the things that should be waited on. And you've known how to wait at the start. But when this comes to an end, I heard him say also in the second verse, he said, and thou canst not bear them which are evil, and thou hast tried them which say that they are apostles, and they are not, and have found them to be liars. And then he repeats himself. He said, you have borne, you have patience, and you have made for my name's sake. You have labored and have not fainted. But then he qualifies it. He lets you know. Now the verdict is, nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, when Jesus used nevertheless, he uses them in a different way of resolution. I'm resolving the fact that although I don't want it, although it's not feasible for me, it's not something I really want, I've got to come to the place of saying, Lord, nevertheless, not as I will, Lord, but what thou wilt. I may not want it, I may not choose it, but Lord, although it seems like I don't want it, nevertheless, not as I will. It's a place of resolution. Somebody has to make a resolution about what you're going through. Although I don't want to go down that road, but I realize the verdict is, nevertheless, not as I will, Lord, but as thou wilt. And so then I'm looking at this, that Jesus made this resolution and said, nevertheless, it's a word that you have to be careful of how it's been used, because somebody can use the word, it's the same word, but when it's used in a different term, it has a different meaning. In some setting, if you use the word nevertheless, I'm rejoicing already. In the moment and time, you can relax in that time, because once it's used, I'm anticipating what's behind the word. It's just the same word that is used as if you will say, but it was the word that somebody used, that you may call before your teacher, you may be called before your tutor. You have just written your essay and you have put in everything that you need to put into it, and you're standing in front of the tutor and he's picking it apart and he's looking at it. He saw your little mistakes, he saw your grammatical errors, he saw the spelling errors, he saw all these things, and he called you before him and he said, now, I'm looking at your essay and I'm seeing where you made a mistake here. I'm looking over there and I'm seeing that you didn't spell it all correctly, and I see there that you didn't line it up grammatically really well. But then he comes to another place and he said,